All right, friends. It is me, Jamie, from Independent Street Tarot and Seasons and Ritual, and we're here to talk about the Virgo new moon that will be happening uh literally tomorrow because it is going to be after midnight at 0 degrees of Virgo. We are at 29 degrees of Leo right now. The sun is still there, and then the sun will move into 0 degrees of Virgo late today, and then the new moon will be immediately following that at 0 degrees. And because of this, we will actually have two new moons in Virgo. So this is going to be a very dynamic Virgo season. Virgo season usually is anyway because it is eclipse season. We'll have our two eclipses um, in Pisces and Virgo this season as well. And this is well, you know how we usually talk about like karmic resets, right? So we start at 0 degrees of Virgo. And this is a huge reset for Virgo. It's a huge reset for the mutable signs. Virgo's mutable earth. Virgo is known as the resolver. And I say that this is a huge reset for mutable signs because of the 0 degrees that we start on, and then we have Uranus and Gemini. And so Uranus and Gemini is going to be squaring Virgo. We have a lot of construction going on outside. Uranus and Gemini is going to be squaring the 0 degrees of Virgo. And this is the first time we've had a square of Uranus in Gemini for the past 80 years. So Gemini is also mutable, right? And then we're going to have the eclipse in Pisces, which is mutable water. Um, we'll see how Sagittarius plays in this somehow, I'm sure, this Virgo season. So we have to remember that Uranus was in Taurus, for 7 years or so. And that was that huge reset for all the fixed signs for where we are now, moving into this age of Aquarius. And now we are in this age of Aquarius. And so now it's the time for these mutable signs to start turning over and seeing how they're going to start showing up in this age of Aquarius. Um, because Virgo is the resolver, and because Virgo is the only sign in the zodiac that does this, that resolves things. That's why it's always great to have a Virgo on your team. But we have to also remember that the South lunar node is in Virgo. And what happened with Virgo is that it's gotten into a rhythm of constantly thinking, constantly resolving. Um, I always laugh and say when I talk to my little Virgo friends, like, if you guys aren't thinking about, I always say, if you guys are thinking about year 2032, you're too far in the future. And they always laugh because they always are. Because they're always coming in thinking about how to get things done, how to organize, which is, if I'm going to speak in kind of blanket statements, right? It can be a trait of earth signs, because earth signs like to work in the tangible. Virgo represents the everyday. Virgo represents the ritual, how it does things day to day. That's why it's really good at resolving. And what we're doing with this South lunar node in Virgo, which means it's going to be there for, it's like 18 months. It's still, I mean, it just moved in there. We still got a while, well over a year. But the South Node is what we're leaving behind as a collective. And what we're getting out of this Virgo is the martyr, right? Martyring yourself. I'll do it. I'll do it. I got it. I'll do it. But also this overthinking, because we have to remember that Virgo is a mutable sign. And these mutable signs is what holds us in these liminal spaces so things can happen, so we can allow, right? We can allow things to come in. Um, and this is where we're at because we are in this huge change with Pluto and Aquarius. We're in this age of Aquarius, this square. We can say Virgo is the mind and the body, right? Because it's got to show up in the tangible. The square with Uranus. Um, Uranus, uh, the who rules Aquarius, right? Bringing in this shakeup. The wait, how am I gonna? How do I do this now? If I'm always thinking And Uranus in Gemini is saying we've got to stop thinking, right? We've got to allow, which is your authentic self, Virgo, because we're in this age of Aquarius. So we have to go back to authenticity. We have to go back to the self. That's a and Uranus is that idea of awe, of the aha, of where did that come from? That divine inspiration, the muse, all these things. Because Uranus rules the cosmos. So it's bringing in all this information from everywhere, right? That's where we're going to get all these new ideas. But it's also like this idea of, I didn't see that coming, right? And it could be a good thing, right? Or it could just be a surprise, like, wow, I didn't see that coming. I will say this is a side note. The one thing I did not see coming, and I thought of this new moon and going into Virgo season, was that AI is failing. Everyone's like, AI is going to take over, and they're reporting that 95% of companies that are using AI are getting zero returns. And it's not because they don't like it or they don't know how to use it, but it's just this idea of the way the AI thinks. It's not giving them what they thought. Like AI is very helpful and useful in certain situations, but the way they were trying to say that it was going to do everything or take everything over, it's not working. And I'll link the shows that I was watching that was talking about this. So you can see it's not some weird deep state or whatever theory, but that came out of nowhere. And a lot of times when we talk about Pluto and Aquarius, people think of AI, or Uranus and Gemini, people think of AI, because Uranus rules Aquarius and that is the future. Gemini is communication. So let's go back to this new moon where it's squaring. And it's really kind of beautiful because if you think of the sun and the moon, which is our masculine and feminine, talking to talking to Gemini, and Uranus is in there. And I would see it more like a meeting of the minds, like, when diplomats come and meet and you're from different places and you're bringing in new ideas and stuff. And like us as people aren't really sure what that means, but we're going to show up and we're going to be open to it. We're going to be grateful that there's this meeting taking place. We're going to show up and talk about some things. Uranus is going to show up and talk about some things. And we're going to kind of see where things, as of right now, don't match up or don't make sense, or laying a blueprint for what we can build on, because I always like to see squares as building blocks, right? So allow this square to show up in yourself, to see what needs to be changed, um, because this is going to be the entire theme of Virgo season. Leo season was very dynamic. Virgo season is going to be more dynamic because of Uranus in Gemini, but also because the two eclipses, that eclipse energy, I mean, when you start with eclipse and we're in eclipse season, it starts eclipsing things and out pretty quickly. So we might as well get used to that, okay? And it is this idea that Virgo likes to have a calendar, likes to have a schedule, likes to get things done, and it was like this, right? And now it's going to be, because we're in a whole nother time. We're going to be starting a whole new pattern, if we even start a pattern, right? Um, so we have to start to get used to this as individuals. We have to get used to this idea of being in that liminal. We have to get used to this idea that maybe we don't know how things are going to resolve right away. I copied this and I'm not doing a good job. So you guys can see right here, 0 degrees. Okay. Right here, right, where's that? Here's the square, right? See, whoop, that's the square with Uranus and Gemini. Okay. Because Uranus is at 1 degrees. I'm looking at this, it's all backwards because the way this works, but when you see it, it'll be the right way around. And then we have this yod with Pluto, and with Saturn. Okay, Saturn is in Aries, right? The self, there's that fire. And then, of course, Pluto is still in Aquarius. right? Pluto's retrograde right now, but in Aquarius. And so that is known as a yod. And when we have these yods, it's a pressure. And it's a pressure on Virgo. But the idea, the way that I'm reading this yod, um, because a lot of times they say when there's a yod there, there's no resolution right away. And again, that kind of goes back to this idea of Virgo understanding that, well, maybe not understanding, but kind of getting used to the idea that there's not going to always be a resolution right away. And so, and again, Virgo can handle this because Virgo is mutable. It's just that Virgo has forgotten how to be mutable in a sense because Virgo is like a little machine, always working. Capricorn, Earth, always working, right? Taurus, the bull. That's why we have a bull at the stock market, right? It's about money, working, making, the grind. And we're in a space where that's just not how things are going to be because we're going to have to start allowing a lot more. Allowing is that divine feminine energy. Allowing is getting the inspiration. Where's our Uranus, right? Listening to what Gemini is saying. Gemini's got the twins yelling at us. What about this? How about this? Have you thought of that? In a good way, right? So it could be overwhelming at the start, or it could be overwhelming if you find yourself constantly thinking or trying to figure things out for this Virgo season. That is your sign to relax, allow things, right? Air signs like to think. I'm an Aquarius, my Gemini is rising. I like to think. I like to communicate. Um, and so I'm constantly trying to say, am I too much in my mind right now? Or am I gonna, I got to pay attention. I've got to be present. Virgo is going to be um, taught how to be more in the present moment because Virgo is really good at resolving past issues and then future issues. But this new moon is all about, and this Virgo season is all going to be about the present and how do we stay in the present? How do we hold that liminal if there's no resolution? Saturn is going to say it's okay to have boundaries, right? It's okay to say we're only going to work on this for right now, right? I don't need to have um, my calendar planned out, which I know Virgos are like, yes, we do, for the whole year. Okay. Maybe we do it for 6 months, right? And again, it's about integrating this new way of showing up, this new way of being, this new authenticity, right? It doesn't have to be like, even if the band-aid gets ripped off, right? But it is about, okay, implementing new things at a good pace that makes sense for you or makes sense for the other. Um, I'm trying to read my notes because I have a lot of notes. This Virgo season is going to be a lot about free will. Um, we have to remember that we are being told a lot of things, shown a lot of things. And we have to remember as individuals, we do have free will. We don't know the ending, right? A lot of times, society wants to write the ending for us, and then we just kind of go along with it. Again, this yod, right, with Pluto, um, Pluto in Aquarius. We got Pluto in Aquarius in this yod, and then the square from Gemini. I mean, from Gemini, right? In Uranus. This is transformation at its finest. And if you guys want to know what Uranus and Gemini looks like, go see the video that I recorded of the lightning storm that I was driving through. That is Uranus energy all over it, right? Planting these new seeds, getting all these ions, friction baby, coming out of what seems like nowhere, coming out of the earth or from the sky, integrating in with the earth. This is what we're doing. Virgo is Earth. We're here to get this um, new way of being, and it's important to work to understand this liminal. Virgo, when we don't have a resolve, right? We don't know how this is going to end. So, how do you stay in the present? What are some things that you can do today? Can you check on your neighbor? Can you call your friends? Can you do some things around the house in order to let things show up, right? This is going to be a little tricky at first, okay? But we start at 0 degrees, this karmic turning point, and then at the end of the season, we have the new moon will also, the dark moon will come back in at 29 degrees. Okay, so talk about baptism by fire, right? Which is also this Uranus in Gemini, right? This is that square. We're going to learn how to do this as quickly as possible. Okay, because it's going to come out of nowhere. Um, it may or may not make sense, um, but Virgo's going to hold it, and then Virgo is going to figure out how to resolve it. But if it feels like there's no resolve, Virgo's still going to hold it and understand that the resolution will come. Or maybe it won't come. And I mean that in the sense that the individuals will get their own resolution. Virgo doesn't have to figure it out for everybody, right? If Virgo's holding this and people want to resolve it themselves, then that can happen as well. Virgo's opposite sign is Pisces. Okay, so Virgo is used to working with water energy. So this yod with Pluto and Aquarius, well, there's no quote unquote resolution to say if you think of that yod's just putting pressure on it. It's not going to be freaking Virgo out that much because Virgo is used to working with water energy and Pluto rules Scorpio. Okay. But it's putting that pressure on Virgo because it has to change, right? Virgo has to um, start showing up differently that's more authentic to itself and more authentic to the time that we're in. All right, let's go over this. Yep, I say time to practice mindfulness, being present. Let's see, the yod with Saturn Aries, because we don't know what it'll look like in the day to day, or we don't know exactly how to resolve it because we have to be open, keeping it simple and keeping it practical. Um, Pluto and Uranus can represent the future self. What are we speaking? Like as in jobs, that's Virgo. Um, Virgo getting more in touch with the body, right? Instead of always being in the mind, right? And that's going to also be part of this, um, because Pluto and Aquarius is going to say like how are you changing your mind, right? How are you working with the idea of the mind? Um, Scorpio, the body, right? Because Scorpio is feelings. How are we feeling about this? And then really also the body is that Saturn and Aries, because Aries represents the self, right? And so it's putting all this pressure on Virgo. And I don't want you guys to think like this is like a chokehold or anything like that, because it's not, right? It is like the perfect combination of how to cook something, right? In a good way. Okay. Because the things that are going to be slowing us up or holding us down, we're in eclipse season. It's going to be moved out of the way. But it's really important to remember that we do have free will. It's really important to know that this entire Virgo season, we are in a time of change. And it's really important to understand that it's okay to work in the liminal where we don't know how things are going to end, even though the news keeps telling us how things are going to end, or they keep giving us scenarios or how things are going to end. And this is really going to be a time where we're like, damn, I didn't see that happening. I didn't see that coming, right? I didn't see that coming that AI is not working. I was like, whoa, that is right. Um, but here we are, right? And so Uranus is going to be bringing in um this change, right? Out of the blue. And Virgo, who at a soul level knows how to work with that change, is really going to have to work with that change because it's been able to put it to the side or just stick with the program or make the program. And this whole Virgo season is about getting back in touch with the body and the mind and the liminal. Okay. So this is going to be a really dynamic season. And I'm not worried about Virgos getting it because you guys are Virgos, right? Same with the mutable signs. We're really starting to get back into the idea of what a mutable sign means. Um, because we're going back to authenticity, right? And when I think of the signs and the planets, um, you know, um, it is about where we are now in our mythology, right? And so, having Mars and Aries and Venus, um, and Jupiter, all those planets act a certain way, like when we learned about Roman and Greek mythology. And my friend's daughter was talking about it because she's in school. It was making my blood pressure rise because I just forgot how shitty they were to each other, right? Because I read them now, how they're presenting now. And so if you can see them in their, like as infants, right? Cosplaying as gods and goddesses and name it, whatever, nymphs, all those things, right? But now we're in a new chapter, a new age. So they've had to mature, they've had to grown up, or they've had to grow up. And here we are in that maturing, in that growing up and implementing new energy. So their stories have to change because our stories are changing. Virgo can't be the Virgo of the last 20 years, which is a good thing. Aquarius can't be the Aquarius of the last 20 years, which is a good thing, right? And it's not to freak out and be like, well, who am I right now? It is this idea of getting in touch with who you really are. Where are you right now? You aren't who you were 20 years ago, and we don't know who you're going to be 20 years in the future. So who are you right now? How do you start to manifest? You manifest from the present. You manifest from who you are right now. And this is going to be Virgo season. So if you can think of Virgo holding that space, Pisces holding that space, um, to get you from the Alpha and the Omega. Saturn is going to go back into Pisces September 1st, right? I mean, Virgo season's cooking with gas, which Virgos love. So, and they're up for the challenge. They're like, okay, let's do this. Because it is about being able to understand that area of meditation, right? That area of allowing, that area of getting you back to the present in order to manifest what you want. Instead of trying to manifest from the past, we can't, and we can't manifest from the future because it's really unwritten, right? It really is. If we want what we want or how we want to get to things, we've got to get in touch with who we are right now in order to move from there. And this whole Virgo season is going to be shaking things up to clear space out. That's where Uranus shines, quite honestly. And in Gemini, how are we speaking about ourselves now? How are we thinking differently about ourselves? Um, how are we speaking about our communities? How are we thinking differently about our communities, right? Goes back to, you remember we keep saying like where'd the critical thinking go? It's coming back and it's coming back in lightning bolts. So get ready for that. Okay, look at this. 0 degrees. And in this one it says 22. So that's pretty cute too. So welcome to Virgo season. Welcome to a huge karmic reset. Welcome to a body reset, body mind reset. Welcome to a mutable sign reset. Um, if you guys, this is gonna be one. I'm gonna say this is gonna be one for the books, but I'll probably be saying that for the rest of my life. But I'm excited, We've got to remember, like, we're up for the challenge. We're a lot smarter than we've given ourselves credit to. We do a lot, and it's time for us to get back into that spirit where we do love ourselves and we can think critically. We can be good neighbors. We can show up for ourselves. We can show up for our friends, right? Because we're doing better with boundaries. We're doing better with saying no. We're doing better with like it'll be okay if I don't martyr myself for this, right? We're all going to be learning this in Virgo season. I don't have to keep thinking about this. I literally can hand this over to God or to the lamp or, whatever you believe in, whatever. I can't think of a God right now. Whatever. You know what I mean? And that is what we're going to be practicing this Virgo season. So, and we'll tell you this, if you guys are interested in doing moon school, I'm going to put the link below. This would be a great time. You can go to join since we get 3 moons in this season instead of just the normal 2. And I'm going to put the links below this video so you guys can go to my website and check that out. Feel free to email me if you guys have any questions on that. And again, if you have any questions about this Virgo season, it's going to be super dynamic. So reach out for me on that. Maybe we'll do, maybe I'm trying to get so it can come on more. I don't know. Talking to yourself, as you do these videos, it is what it is, right? This is where we're at, but we'll try to see. Okay. If you guys have any questions, please reach out. You can find me on Instagram. Today is the last day of our 13 days of ego death. I was posting it on here, but I think I forgot to post a couple days, but they're all up on Instagram. Oh, let's pull one card with the Santa Mortar deck for this ego reset. Let's see. We're for this 0 degrees karmic reset. What is I've got this oh, can't make this up. This is perfect because if Virgo is the heart, or excuse me, the mind and the body, and then we say that Gemini is the heart and the mind, and we pulled the Two of Cups. All right, so let's talk about this. All right, the Two of Cups. Super cute. Love is the imperative of this card. Passion, a strong connection of reciprocal exchange and attraction, affection, complementary, and comprehensive. It can signify a gestation after an accumulation, but reversed, which it's not. Um, so it can signify a gestation after an accumulation. Okay, so it's not reversed. Okay, the advice of the dead. Gain well-being and happiness when you have rightly accumulated it, but also when you have received and prepared for the next steps to take. When you have received and prepared for the next steps to take. I think this is really, oops, where to go? This is really good for Virgo season, right? It's saying that we can show up in love. We can show up in our bodies. We can show up in our hearts, right? We can show up in our minds. So, great card. Thank you, Santa Morta. All right, till then, friends, I hope you guys enjoy this last day of Leo season and move quietly into Virgo season because um, then we've got eclipses and we're going to be rocking and rolling. So, till then.